Yeah, my name is Jack Cooksey. I've been playing for about 35 years, playing disc sports for about 35 years. I began as an ultimate player when my brother joined a club, and I was just a kid. I quickly got into overall disc sports as well. I've played pretty much every disc sport since I was about 12 or 13 years old. That was back in the late 70s. Now, had a lot of success as a field events player, and I am an avid disc DDC player as well, double disc court player. But not as successful as the players we're watching today.
And I'm Arthur Coddington. I'm a 16-time world champion in freestyle flying disc. Lately, I've been focusing on getting better at DDC. It's actually my favorite disc sport, tied with freestyle. I've played since I was a teenager. Played pretty much every event, thrown distance and played disc golf. And right now, DDC is my focus. This is the 2016 U.S. Open Flying Disc Championships DDC final. We have Conrad Damon and Dave Hesselberth versus Sam Kaye and Lebeau. This will be a best 3 out of 5 match, games to 15. So right now, like in basketball or tennis, the players are going to do a flip to determine choice of side of court. So they're going to flip 2 discs. The opposite team is going to call whether the discs are going to land same or different.
In the yellow shirt, Lebeau, Sam Kaye. The red shirt, Dave Hesselberth, Conrad Damon.
He's the event director, so he has to announce it.
They called even, and so Team Yellow wins the flip. What they will get to do is choose whether they want to play on the left side of the court or the right side of the court, or have the other team call the serve, or be able to choose the serving combination. So probably what they're going to do is pick either side of court or the DES, or the team that has to initiate rallies first.
So Arthur, I was going to explain a bit about the results of the flip. When the team wins decides whether they want to choose the court side designation to the other team, or they want to establish the server combinations. The DES is something for anyone who's never seen DDC play. Designation is what forces the team who has...
All right, so the teams are ready to go. 0-0, first game. So what you'll notice on these top-level teams is that serves are always going to go in.
And if possible, deep into the court.
So what we saw there was Team Yellow attacking Team Red. They tried to get that second Frisbee to arrive at the same time as the first Frisbee. And in that case, Dave Hesselberth tried to tip the Frisbee up into the air to give Conrad some time to catch and throw. And in that case, it didn't work because Dave's tip got away from him.
So now we're in potential attack situation. Sam and Rick are under attack now with 2 discs. Lebeau successfully tips out, but Sam's return went just a bit wide of the court when he was making a quick release.
So even if Sam's throw had gone in, it was likely to be disqualified because it was too steep of an angle. That's something to look out for. The disc can't be more than 30 degrees in angle as it flies through the front line. There are some exceptions to that. So the floaty ones, they have to be kind of flat, and the hard, fast ones, they can be almost any angle.
But also the sort of the real world implication of how we play angle in competitive DDC. It's sometimes like fouls in the National Basketball Association. It can be a sliding scale.
Sidearm initiation from Conrad. Rick gives a backhand lead. Dave trying to get it as deep as possible. It does not look like it's deep. It's a good attack opportunity for Rick. Good dump from Rick.
That's that throw that he threw. It's an upside down throw. It's called a scoober. With the thumb on the top of the disc and the four fingers underneath, and thrown a lot like a baseball pass.
So by leaving Rick close to the front line there, he had a lot of options, and he chose to kind of lob it over Conrad. All right, so that was an easy point for red. Unforced error from Sam Kaye. It's cutting in.
So it was interesting. Some players are really sensitive to noise and distractions on the field, and Rick's pretty sensitive to that. And he asked if we could actually stop the remote control airplanes from being used 2 fields over. And there's not much we can really do about that because they're a club and have the rights to be here. But
Yeah, but you got to fight for every advantage you can get.
that's true. If we don't ask, the answer is always no. I actually think Conrad hired the remote control planes to be played. Just a hunch.
Okay, upside down lead goes out. Conrad makes a nice tumbling catch of the burn.
Sam used a little bit of, not necessarily a tricky shot, but a really low sidearm shot to the very front line, trying to move Conrad from his position on the front line.
The offside burn goes just out. Making the score 5-2 to red. Conrad and Dave would kind of grind away with a really good defense and win on not making errors. So these teams are not going to make a lot of errors, but sometimes that differential can be huge.
And even there, under attack, and Dave, they made the decision to bail out of that attack, losing only 1 point instead of 2. It was a nice attack by Sam, really well timed.
Very well timed. We haven't really talked about the styles of these two teams. So Team Yellow is the generally more aggressive team. They'll take more chances. All right, that's our first double of the game. That's when a team touches both Frisbees at the same time. It's probably the worst possible thing that a team can do. They just lost 2 points.
And it is.
It's kind of the ultimate goal in the game, isn't it?
That's the ultimate goal, yeah. You want
Double
to.
discord.
Sometimes you'll even sacrifice an easy opportunity for 1 point in order to try to get the team to lose 2.
Right.
Did I just hear that Jim Paul Mary invented this game? Is that true?
He did. It didn't look like this when he first invented it.
Okay.
And I believe it actually started with single players in round courts.
All right.
Lots of things have changed since the invention of this game, including the style of play as well. It used to be far more risk-taking, a lot more errors allowed because both teams were making errors. And now it's managed aggression.
7-3 at this point to the red team. Still their Des because they won the last point. So they're under attack. Or should be soon.
All right, Sam's lead there went just long, and Dave saw it so early that Conrad was able to deal with Rick's attack.
And it wasn't a very fast attack. It was a pretty slow, well-placed attack.
Rick and Sam having a little conference there. Rick probably just trying to settle Sam down, get him into this match. He's an incredible player. Catches almost anything. Quick off throws. Sometimes he can be error prone. 2 points for Yellow. They recovered really nicely from that.
They really needed that double, too, that double play. It was simply the timing of that was good. It made it hard probably for Dave to make a really accurate call on whether it was in or out. And Rick Lebeau's burn was just got there very fast.
Those fast, low backhand burns are incredibly difficult to play when timed well.
And so now, yeah, nice off by Sam. Really good exchanges happening now.
Good decision by Dave there. After 3 consecutive escapes by the teams, Dave recognized that Conrad was about to catch the disc, and he just needed to drop it in order to save a point.
And do you guys feel, beyond all your skill level, that communication is really probably 75% of this game, or what would you put it at?
I think it tests one of the most primary human problems is quick communication.
Yep.
Quick, effective communication.
Team Yellow serving 6-8.
They've really narrowed the gap here in the last couple of points.
So what you'll see here is the throw is happening as close to the catch as possible so that the burn teammate has as many options as possible. So Rick just called angle on the lead. And what we're seeing is making a quick decision. His job is, when a call is made, to resolve any dispute very quickly. So he clearly called that as not angle, and Rick is asking for clarification on Blair's range of call for that.
And in this game, it is pretty much self-officiated at the higher levels because very experienced players drop out at lower levels. We have a good roster of people on the sideline to serve as an official. The official is typically a passive official unless referred to after a player makes a call.
And what we're seeing here is Blair is acting as an active official, where he's making a resolution before the resolution is asked for by both teams. And that really just keeps the match moving forward with few interactions, few arguments, more DDC.
Yeah, exactly. Some tense setup here. We should expect to see some attack and escape sometime soon. Red under attack.
Tough tip for Conrad. It went over his head. What we saw earlier in that rally, though, was Sam was on the front line with the disc, and his teammate called him off from attacking, which is a subtle element of high-level DDC. They didn't have to attack at that point, so they were waiting for a better opportunity to get 2 points instead of 1.
Yeah, restraint is something that's not exercised by still learning teams. And at the higher levels, restraint is a real virtue.
That's likely to be not deep enough. Conrad's going to attack.
He's got a little wind to fight with that attack, which is why his shot stood up as much as it did and slowed just before Sam's contact.
You probably saw Sam move forward into that tip as well. That's so that he can buy as much time for his teammate as possible. Turned out that Dave's throw went out, and they didn't need all that time.
Score updates too, just periodically, just so I can have the score.
Great escape there. Still, yeah. Good escape.
Great rally from both teams. Great calling, wonderful burning, good movement, great hands.
And as we saw, even though Rick and Sam are on Des there, typically we'd see them throw a lob to position an attack from the back of the court. He burned.
Red is serving 10-8 here. The game is to 15. We're playing 3 out of 5. Great dump from Conrad. And the lead is out.
So we're now at 11-8, red team. If they keep this pace, then we may be at game 1 pretty soon. It's incumbent on the yellow team now to try to march back.
Nice deep rally from Dave.
And they're both really keeping each other deep right now. Strategically, that really does pay off the more you can do that.
So this prevents the other team from... Oh, beautiful diving attempt from Sam. It just jumped out of his hand.
Yeah. And I didn't see the shot come off, but it looked like it was sort of a what we would call a safety shot. And either Conrad or Dave just tried to sneak it to the back corner while Sam maybe had his attention going elsewhere.
I think the yellow team was looking at that out throw too long and forgetting that one of the discs was still in play.
Yeah, and that's always a hazard for players, as they kind of will joke that a player falls in love with his shot and spends too much time following his disc instead of seeing what's coming next.
And all four of these players will take advantage of that if they see the other team doing it.
Yeah. This is a really aggressive level, and so there's really intense focus on each other and every last thing, how your opposing player is even gripping the disc.
13-8, so Team Red is in sight of the first game right now, but they will have to defend Team Yellow right now.
And that was a really nice exchanges here.
Three amazing escapes, and sometimes in these rallies, the multiple escape rallies, the throws that would seem to be easy in normal situations just come apart. So you saw Dave's two-finger throw there that would have normally just been a gimme, went short.
Yeah, and he's such a high percentage thrower. He can make an offside shot like that. He was probably trying to factor in a few different things with that one throw.
That's a rare out serve from Conrad. You won't see that often. He'll be shooting in an entire 3 out of 5 match for 0 of those.
So we'll wait to hear a score here. 10-13, Yellow serving under Dez. So we're going to see Yellow try to keep him at least mid to deep.
Upside down attack there. Those are hard to defend, but Conrad sailed it wide.
And even in kind of slight wind, although these players are really good at pinpointing upside down throws, or what we say UD, the wind can really push them around.
11-13 here.
Yellow's under Dez, and they're going to possibly receive an attack pretty soon.
Brilliant backhand burn from Rick there. They left him short, and he took full advantage.
Yeah, and that's one way to avoid, when you're under Dez, you're typically at a defensive disadvantage. You're going to be under attack, most likely. But if you find an opportunity to put a shot in the court when they're not positioned right, then you slip out of that potential defensive situation. And at this point, they scored. In this situation, they scored.
So Rick and Sam now close the gap to 1. They're 12-13. This game is any team's.
Yeah, and it hasn't been early on. I think just some unforced errors, perhaps on the Yellow team's part, and maybe some forced errors as well. Just created some separation, but now it's tight.
Level play is predictably high. I mean, these are 4 of the top 10 players in the world, so we knew this was going to be a tight, great, high-level match, and it's turning out to be that set.
Come slow. Go. Up. Short here.
Oh, short.
Well, that was lucky for the Yellow team in that Dave felt the attack coming. Even though it was short, he made a play, and that ended up in a break, meaning no points scored, and they'll switch servers and play the point again.
Still 12-13.
Lebeau's left short, but he's going to throw a deep shot.
Dave throws early to get out of Conrad's way on that catch.
And Conrad was smart to wait because he's kind of deep. He wouldn't have had an attack. Dave is deep, and he, again, is waiting for what we call a cycle.
There will be an attack here.
Conrad's kind of deep. It could be that Conrad even saw Dave's shot going deep and just wanted to maybe trick the yellow team into playing out of an attack, which could create
Yeah,
an error.
and Conrad is one of those players who will attack from deeper in the court as well. His burns are so strong that he can attack from a bit, maybe 3 to 5 feet deeper than many other players.
Right.
Teams ready. 2, 1, go.
From his grip, sometimes you might think he's going to throw one profile of shot, and it ends up being completely different. Catches you off guard in the court. Just an error in judgment there.
Dave letting that throw drop in, and we are real close now.
And as a player, I can tell you, in the last couple of days, I lost a good number of points making that same error.
14-13. Ready. 2.
Now yellow with the upper hand.
I see it. Nothing happened.
This is an example of Team Yellow's aggression. So when they get the lead or when they need the lead, they will throw burns like that on the serve.
Wow. So yellow marches back from a deficit.
Amazing comeback. Amazing comeback. They just wore Team Red down in the later parts of that match, that game.
And some uncharacteristic errors by the red team. You can tell the way they kind of come off the court that they're not happy about that. Of course, Team Yellow is pretty emboldened by the fact that they held in and they were able to get that win.
While the players are taking a break between this game, maybe we can talk a little bit about the positions that the players play as a team. So there's a position called front and a position called back. Jack, what do those mean?
So the back player typically has the full view of what's going on in the court. So when a team is, say, a designation team or teams are trading attacks in a series of attacks, the back player will position himself or herself to be in a position to see both discs coming into the court. The back player is typically going to take the first throw into the court, which is typically a lob. And we'll play that lob, and it may mean that the back player will instruct the front player to tip out of his if that's arriving in the court first, so that he can then catch the throw, or vice versa. He will tip out of his, and so that the front player can then catch and throw. And
So they're kind of in charge.
Yeah.
They're telling the front what the play will be to get out of a particular situation.
And you heard a good quote about this, a good description of the back position today that I hadn't heard before.
Yes, the smart guy is always the back.
That I think I do.
Oh, it just talks about who you're playing with, I think is what that is.
Well, I'm not sure my partner would want to hear that. He's sitting right across the court from us watching this match.
So as we approach the beginning of the second game, we can kind of imagine what Team Red is talking about. I imagine they're talking about movement in the court because a couple of the throws have gotten over their heads. I'm imagining they're talking about cleaning up some of those errors. We saw Team Yellow make a bit of errors in the beginning of that game, but then sort of the proportion of errors shift over to Red.
Yeah, and I know that if I were the red team, there were a couple of situations there when you can anticipate that Rick Lebeau is going to throw that backhand burn, or if he gets the right side to throw a hard two-finger or a hard scooper, which is the reverse of the two-finger pretty much, then you leave him front and you're immediately expecting an attack. So I would be talking about keeping Rick Lebeau deeper on any situation.
Yeah, all four of these players have got to be pinned at the back line to kind of declaw them. And what we saw was Rick being left in the front half of the court, and he becomes super dangerous at that point.
Right. And some of the throws, even with the wind in your face, are still, certain players are still going to make those throws. It may seem ill-advised, but they have the potential to score on them.
That can actually be a strategy as well. If the wind starts to be a team that is throwing into the wind might actually become more aggressive in order to minimize errors and maximize the aggression.
Yeah. Because a higher throw basically exposes the disc to the wind, and a lot of things get out of your control at that point. So we're now back to 0-0. with the green team to the yellow team calling Dez. And red team is doing a good job of keeping him deep so far.
Kind of sparring until this moment. Now, Rick's tip got away from him on the first attack opportunity by red. So they go up 1-0.
Something else to know, you can factor it in. Maybe it was a factor there that Rick Lebeau, you'll see he's wearing that knee brace on his right knee. In pool play earlier in the week, he went down with really kind of a debilitating injury. Was able to get back in the game, win the game pretty easily. But as an athlete, you're always dealing with something like that.
So Rick is again middle of the court, but he sees that Sam's throw is going long, so he holds back to possibly save a point for themselves.
Yeah, sometimes the impulse would be when you see your partner's throw going out, then you say, oh, well, I'm going to save this by creating a break. But
some sort of dog attack happening on the speakers here,
We're
so we're just
safe.
going to take a break. I think you pointed out something really important there, which is the discipline of the top teams in DDC.
yeah, and I think already, okay, some slower, safer attacks going on here. None of these teams are trying to throw big winners yet because they're trying to keep this disc in play. That was a really good chase down by Conrad.
What we're seeing is some really relaxed calling from Dave as well.
He is one of the smoothest in the game of all time. False call there. Play continues. Dave tried to get a little tricky.
So when Rick called off that double call, that's an example of sort of the spirit of the game playing itself out, the good sportsmanship.
Yeah, exactly. Realizing that you made a bad call and trying to correct it immediately so that play can continue smoothly.
Team serving at 1-2. Team red ahead.
Lebeau served with a scuba that looked like he was trying to dump, and it just came down a little bit quicker than he expected.
So leaving Conrad too short here, so there will be some sort of attack.
Yeah. So that was a quick call.
So what we saw there was head judge Blair Paulson determining that that escape was clean.
Mm-hmm. Immediately overruling a 2 call.
And that allowed the teams to play on.
Yeah, and that's the benefit of an official. We don't always have that judge in play because typically everybody is on the field.
It's a fun game we want to play all the time.
Yeah.
What we saw there also was when play does go on up. When play does flow by being called for twos.
Exactly.
Even if they're innocent of that charge,
Right.
they can be rattled. And so what we saw was an error on the burn.
Yeah, and it's even though play continues, maybe the judge overruled a bad call, it still is in your head a little bit, and you're supposed to be thinking about one thing, and that's throwing and catching.
3-2. Ready. Nope. Ready. Nope. Okay. Ready. 2, 1.
That was a bit of a cross-court shot that Rick dropped on the cover.
So where Rick is here is fine for a serve, but if they're rallying, that's a very dangerous spot.
Yeah.
Upside down attack. Conrad lost the handle on his catch. He was just going to catch it and throw it. It was going to be a fairly easy escape.
And he backed away from the disc, which was a really smart move, to lose only 1 rather than 2.
3-4. Ready. 2, 1. Throw. Middle. Deep.
Right now, Team Yellow has the desk, so they have to throw first. They're at a little bit of advantage, and you saw
visibly upset with himself, and I think his partner is kind of going the other direction. And although they're having a conference, I think sometimes you have to let your partner know it's okay.
yeah, yeah, and I think what Rick was doing there was going to technique rather than chastising him.
Right. This is the first time they have played together in match play. And this is the 5th time that the red team has played together. And they have won 3 championships together previously.
There's a reason for that. They're both incredible players, both at offense and defense.
That was a ramp tip that Dave did there. I guess Conrad just sort of lost the disc a little bit on the receive and probably thinking what he was going to regrip and throw.
Yeah, usually Conrad's rock solid on his catches, and today it seems like he's a little bit off.
Right. And that can come and go in any given game, any given match.
The edges are real small, so that edge that Conrad is showing about around catching can turn itself around super quick.
Right.
Great diving attempt by Conrad, just slipped through his hands.
So Sam turned a lost.
Less conversation over here, please.
Sam turned a lost. Sam turned a lost point into a break. So now we're having a little bit of the.
Ready, 2,
Teams are looking for the conditions that both will let them play the best, and also maybe something to let them blow off some steam.
Yeah. Yeah.
come, chip, off. Watch that, no, come, hold. Oh, get in.
Sam's lead there just floated left wide.
Yeah, and Sam is one you'll see actually several of these players, probably Rick Lebeau, Sam Kaye, and Dave, more so than Conrad. They will all throw with both hands. They will throw what we would call a hyzer shot, or an inside out is the term that ultimate players use. Will throw these shots, these lead shots that are kind of safe backhand shots with both hands, depending on whether the wind is coming from the right or the left at that time. So red.
What you'll see right now is Conrad throwing the sidearm instead of the backhand lefty. Sam with a little aggression there.
So Dave called tipping, but that was a brush actually on the front edge of the disc, or the nose of the disc, coming at him. Sam throwing heat, but it was late.
Very high. I'll go. Slow.
Sam, that was a little high and
Nice
out.
brush, Hesselberth. Nice brush.
Excellent rally by both teams. Really controlled. We didn't see much of the sort of the super aggression there. It was a lot of placement, a lot of timing.
Yeah, and you'll see the smart attack usually is if a front player on the opposing court is a little bit out of position or has staked a position, is the attack on that player should move that player. Can make an error happen. Can change the timing.
Team Red serving 7-4. So we're going to see a variety of attacks because these top teams, you can't give them the same look every time.
Right. Yeah. So now under attack. That was pretty far back.
So this is giving Conrad position.
Hold short here.
Sam made a good grab there, but he was just too quick on the release. Feeling probably the clock. We could talk about the ticking clock that the front player will feel while not seeing what's going on behind him.
Exactly. So on the red side, what Dave said was tip yours. And so Conrad was closer to the front line, tipped his up in the air. And so rather than having Dave burn from the back of the court, Conrad got to burn from pretty far up.
Right. And that's preferable when both players have a variety of shots to deliver.
Both teams keeping each other very deep.
Yep. And so this is what we call just rally points. where they're just sort of going back and forth.
Time. Oh, early. Sorry. Come. Chip. Up.
Yeah, it was both early and slow from Sam.
Dave checking if that might have been out if he had let it go. I think it was going to be in.
Yep.
Slow. Tipping. Hold.
And you could feel the wind kind of come up almost exactly as Dave was getting ready. It was lining up that tip.
Yeah, it went left, and he was hoping it was going to go mostly straight up or right in front of him.
Right. Yeah, it was using. We use the wind in a lot of different ways, and so one is if the disc is coming in on what I would call the drift side, meaning it's being pushed into the court by the wind instead of pushed down. Then you try to mack it back up into the wind or brush it.
Score is 5-8, yellow serving.
Come slow. I'll chip. Off. No. Slow. Tip yours. Hold. Good shot.
So Dave made the call there, calling Conrad to tip his, thinking that it was arriving faster, but he realized at the very last second that he was wrong, and so made the right call, told Conrad to hold his disc and let his go.
And this is the top teams managing point gains and point losses. So they could have lost 2 there. Instead, they just took the 1.
Yeah, and that 2, even though it's just 1 more point, it's a very demoralizing second point often.
Rick saw an opportunity for a fast scuba burn and threw it a little bit down, more down than he wanted, and landed about 8 feet short.
Right, and he was trying to beat a very capable front player, and so probably felt the pressure to get it there in a hurry, and pinpointed in tough wind.
It's an interesting battle within the battle because Conrad is one of the top fronts in the world, but he usually doesn't play that position.
No, he calls, when he gets to play front, as he's doing here now with Dave, he says it's like being on vacation because it's he doesn't have to think as much.
In addition to being an incredible disc athlete, he also has a background as a soccer goalie as a kid.
Yep. Yeah, he was like an all-city goalie. I think, I forget where he's from, either St. Louis or Kansas City. And he's a driven athlete.
Rally.
Oh, wow. Conrad barely off because the timing was so close. He could feel it.
A little bit of misdirection from Rick there as well when he said rally.
Right. And so players will use that sometimes intentionally, sometimes not, when they view their shot and say, oh, my shot's out. It might not be. It might just be close. It felt out. Or sometimes they'll even say, I'm good.
Dave is pinned in the back, and Conrad's rally shot goes left, wide. Unusual errors.
Right. Conrad will talk from time to time about having some discomfort with his backhand, just not trusting it as well as he does other shots. Nice catch there. Aggressive action from Rick. Switches hands and throws a initiation with the lefty because of the wind. High backhand from Dave.
Out here, just catch. Good eye.
So Rick judged that to be out, and it turned out to be in.
And even really experienced back players sometimes maybe factor in that if it's close enough to call out, it may be preferable to playing a shot that they're not feeling so certain about playing.
That was good. Now. What? He called it out. Okay. Ignoring this. He called it out.
There's a discussion now about whether the
Okay, that was my bad on the motion. I called it out before that.
So Rick calling that corner shot out.
yeah, and so disagreement between the two teams, but finally agreeing that okay, it was out, which means even if it had the slightest touch of the rope, that makes it out. Exact opposite of tennis.
Initiation, so. No problem.
Team's getting a little distracted by the conversation, so Dave's going to tie his shoe, take a few deep breaths, and then they'll continue.
And the rules tolerate this at this point in the game. If it becomes egregious, then the official or other players may.
So teams can take a timeout every game, 2-minute timeout each game of the 5 games. And there is a delay of game restraint. So if a team is not ready after 10 seconds of standing at the front line, they can be called for delay of game.
Come, high. Tip yours. Yep. Left.
Really good call by Rick.
Great shot. Great shot.
Wow, that was a pretty great return. They were deep in the court. They played out of that attack. Then Sam made a really nice deep court burn.
Amazing 2-finger from the back of the court after running all the way back just to tip it and catch it.
Yeah. Good call by Rick, knowing the timing there. And can't underestimate what...
Both serves out. Both serves out there.
Yeah. So, there's probably a little, you get in a good exchange, a series of exchanges like that, and there's a lot of adrenaline. And sometimes it's hard to reel your shots back in.
Still 10-9.
Another close game. Closer at this point in the game than it was the last one when the yellow team was working their way back.
It's up to red for the comeback now.
Yeah.
1, throw. Great shot.
Rick seems to be in the zone on his backhand burn today.
Yeah. And, you sort of try it out at certain speeds, and he had some successful shots earlier and in the last game. And so he's looking for those opportunities. Maybe somebody has shaded a touch out or into the center of the court, leaving just enough space as there was there for him to get it there before the player can even move to catch.
Rick's backhand burn is incredibly difficult to play when he's in the zone like this. He can go left, straight, or right, and there's very few cues you can use to figure it out.
Right. It's the same grip in the same stance.
Very slow. Tip. Tip. Time. 2. No. I dropped. Clean. You let go. Okay. I was watching. You dropped.
That's our first double tip of today.
That is our first double tip, and lucky for yellow, the disc was not still touching Lebeau when Sam caught.
Ready. 2, 1, throw.
Team red 10, team yellow 11. Sam making a big error there, throwing off Des, so he didn't have to throw. He put his team temporarily at a disadvantage, possibly under attack, but they got out of it with no attack.
Yeah, giving up. Nice ramp tip by Dave Hesselberth. Very good reception. Looks like that.
We're looking at the. It's in.
And Conrad's not defense, but to see what he was saying, it had some speed coming into the court. It was a little high, and it's logical to think it might have gone all the way.
I think any player on this field would have seen that as going out.
Yeah.
But this grass is really sticky.
It's very sticky. Almost perfect conditions for anyone who has pretty pinpoint throws, and even some who don't. It can save you.
Attack coming right now.
Slow. Tip. Up. I got it. Good shot.
Oh, wow. Hesselberth caught a shot that might have been going to the back line. They're deep in the court right now.
Tip yours. Tip. Right. Switch. No time. Tip. Now coming now. Tipping.
Wow. Pretty.
Come slow. Hold.
Triple tip on that exchange. Conrad thought the burn was coming and anticipatorily tipped.
Yeah, so that was the power of a fake throw. And there was absolutely no spin left on that disc by the time Conrad was done with it.
I think the crowd agrees that was the best point of the match, most exciting point.
Yeah. What you'll see from the
Super important point too. I think that ties the game.
we're gonna hear the score, as Red calls it.
11-12.
We're at 11-12.
One, throw.
Yellow team is up.
Good deep. Maneuver. Rally. If you want.
So
No,
Lebeau
no.
weighing whether or not to throw the burn from his position. He'll probably wait to choose a better moment.
No. Slow. Hold.
Short burn from Sam there.
And it was a low power backhand, meaning that he probably was trying to go for more of a placement, maybe that front right corner. When he grips up backhand, that might not be the front player's first thought to cover.
Ready. 2, 1, go.
So we're at a tie game now.
Dave sensing maybe a wind change there, shifting his throw.
Tipping. Is that down? No. Come. Tip. Oh, no. No.
Red's Dez, so they have to get rid of their disc first. Sam is coming with an attack, leaving Conrad on the front after he tips out.
Beautiful lob burn from Conrad there, mixing up the rhythm.
Yeah, absolutely. And Conrad's, he has such a variety of throws that he can pull out that can go right over a front player and just stick in the back of the court. He hasn't been using that full, palette of throws today. What we've seen is he's been throwing actually some slow side hand attack. I wouldn't classify them as burns.
It's almost like he's trying to figure out the vulnerabilities of Team Yellow, but they may be running out of time.
Yeah, they really are. And we have seen in plenty of games, Conrad will sometimes turn on the heat and just start throwing winners at will. We haven't seen that yet. He's had some injuries with his right hand, his throwing hand, which have sort of changed his shot selection, I think.
First disc got away from Dave. He just had to call off the point, sacrifice 1 point, as to Conrad to just catch.
Yeah, and sometimes a player playing a high lob makes a decision as to where the disc is going to fall, and the wind changes, and all of a sudden you're in the wrong position.
That's so frustrating when that happens.
Ready. 2, 1, throw.
Yellow with the Dez now, technically, will be under attack if things go textbook.
Hold.
Dave leaving another short there. It looks like he took a little bit off of that burn.
He did. And something to factor in, the median age of these players right now is not as close to Sam Kaye as you would guess.
Oh, nice. Change up. Come. Go. Hold.
Rick almost wrong-footed Conrad there on the scooper burn.
Almost.
Conrad scrambled to get it, and then clean winner.
And he has, Lebeau has some shots that are switch grip attacks. So they show one thing to the player and then deliver another thing.
What do we got? 14.
14-14. What a close game.
Yeah. Red really wants this, needs it. That was lucky for the red team. They made kind of actually it wasn't a bad decision, it was just not a great tip, and the attack shot slid long.
It's not just about the decisions, it's about executing on those decisions. And in that case, Dave's tip got away from him, and fortunately for Red, the burn went long.
Right. 14-14. Red with the Dez.
Two, yes.
And game 2 ends in a double.
Yeah. And
Beautiful instincts from Sam there to slow down his attack after catching Conrad's burn on serve.
right. Yeah, that was a good bit of restraint. He has nowhere near the veteran years of the three other players. He's probably been playing total maybe 9-10 years. Has quickly ascended the ladder of ranked players and likes to play primarily as a front. Fronts like him are in high demand.
He's nipping at the top 5 in the world right now. And it's pretty hard to break into that elite group, and he's doing a great job at it.
Yeah, and if anybody is going to do it, Sam definitely has the desire and is willing to put in the work, and it's not just work on the field too. It's a lot of thought that goes.
So it just burned.
Oh.
Didn't work.
Do you want to talk live on our footage here?
Oh, I don't know.
Yeah. It is.
So Team Red now has a big task in front of them. The comeback from down 2-0. They've got to win the next 3.
Yeah, and it's not impossible. It can be done, but a lot of things have to change. I think Red, if we look at sort of the injury reports of these two teams, both Conrad and Dave are dealing with some pretty critical things that affect their throwing. I think their movement is fine, but some of their throwing is limited. Dave is dealing with a shoulder injury.
You can see some tape on his upper right arm there.
Exactly. He has some kinesio tape that he's been using to sort of mitigate some of the pain in his shoulder. He doesn't have quite the heat that he's had in more competitive years, and he's a very good placement thrower. But that two-finger is a shot that he relies on as one of his primary weapons. Conrad's right hand, as I said earlier, is kind of injured, so he's not showing us some of the other attack shots that he uses. Even on his serves, he can do some very fast-looking serves that then slow up and then just dive in the back of the court, making it really hard for a player to cover.
You guys are doing awesome with it.
At the beginning of the match, we talked about aggression and consistency and defense, and it looks like the aggression of yellow team is one of the keys here.
Yeah, and they really, I mean, we're looking at an issue of like shoulders versus knees, and the red team is typically a very great throwing team, not to mention just supreme judgment, but Sam Kaye has a laser of an arm when it's on, when he's focused, and he's got a variety of shots he can use. Lebeau has a full range. He can throw a two-finger, he can throw a backhand burn, a scuba.
I think at this point we would have predicted that Team Red's attacks would have won them more points, and Team Yellow's doing an awesome job of defending. They're kind of a wall at this point, and so they're having the opportunity to attack back and probe those vulnerabilities on Team Red.
Yeah, and that's just it. I mean, you said it before a couple times. It's just that their aggression is winning out. I think that the red team they're going to need to throw more hot stuff at the yellow team.
Ready, 2, 1, go.
And we're off on game 3, 0-0.
Yellow with the des, meaning they're under attack almost right away.
All right, so this is a different. Turns out that the burn is against yellow.
When Conrad says UD, meaning this high UD upside down throw that comes down like an elevator in an elevator shaft with no cables.
So we talked about the back having to monitor what's happening in the court. If you're looking up at an upside down throw that's 40, 50, 60 feet up, 40, 50, 60 feet up, you can't really see everything that's going on in the court.
Right.
And only the best elite players like these know where to stand in the court in order to monitor everything that's going on.
Yeah, and that was almost one of those right there. That was an upside down lead shot. Lebeau is playing it, and like you're saying, he had to have a high view in that disc. So now red with the des.
Very deep rally shot. Kind of sparring here until someone will get a shorter shot for the burn.
Lebeau throws a high scooper, but it was easy out for red. Yellow equally. A late attack from Conrad. Late slow. Conrad's going to throw a winner.
So here's a huge development. Conrad is playing back now. So they've switched positions. They've made a team decision that combination of front-back wasn't working as well as they want to, so Conrad's trying out back right now.
And that can be a number of things. It can be who's feeling that back position better. It could be that Conrad is ready to turn on some hotter throws that Dave hasn't been comfortable doing because maybe of a shoulder injury. And yeah, that obviously worked for them.
In addition to calling all the plays, the back also throws about 2/3 of the throws. So if Dave's feeling any fatigue in that arm, that it's to his advantage to let Conrad take those 2/3 of the throws.
Red comfortably out of that.
And two for Team Red on a great attack. Great timing by Conrad.
So this is obviously, that was a game time decision from both of them. And we've seen pretty immediate result of that working out.
What we're seeing is when Conrad plays back, he's very, very calm.
Yeah, he is. And typically a front player who might feel a little edgy about how much time they have to respond and throw can count on a really high tip from Conrad.
Conrad just forgot that he was back.
Perhaps.
Coming easy. Go. Tipping.
He's off vacation now. That was a really good effort by Lebeau, that one-handed just sort of smack at the disc.
At his knees. At his knees. That's a tough brush to make.
Yeah.
Tough airbrush to make.
And there are players who make that for a guy of his age. That was a pretty impressive attempt. One of his former partners, who's now a pro ultimate player, Cody Kirkland, is the type of player who makes all sorts of virtuoso plays like that, but gets the catch and then returns the shot. I can hold this up here.
Let's see how Team Red does on this side, playing with the different wind. Opposite wind that they were playing with just a moment ago. Great diving catch from Conrad to save the point. So big, huge, what's that, 15, 20 meters long on the burn?
Oh, yeah, that was
Yeah.
maybe the next zip code. Not quite.
And I think Dave lost sight of the upside down throw, and Conrad just a centimeter above the grass grabbed it and immediately signaled that it was a good catch.
Yeah, and I believe he was kind of backed off a little bit, giving Dave some room. And saw how that shot just crashed down on them. You can see that Conrad is now really breaking out some of his more aggressive shots. He's got great placement. That was just a fraction off.
What does Conrad call that shot right there?
That's an offside 2-finger burn. So instead of the disc grabbing on the grass, it kind of slides on the grass on the other side of the court.
That's not the wet blanket, is it?
No, the wet blanket, if we're lucky to see it, will actually look like it's a regular throw, but at the end it'll flop and flip over
Like a wet blanket?
like a wet
Like
blanket.
a wet blanket. If this match gets into a fifth game, and Red has a comfortable lead, then we might see a wet blanket.
Okay.
Or maybe even a glazed donut, which is a really hard to describe throw as how it actually happens.
The score's now 8-0. So this is a huge momentum shift. Clearly Team Red likes this configuration. Conrad's moving well.
A little bit third world on the tip, but
No, please.
it almost looked like a back end double.
Almost, and an immediate call from Blair Paulson, head judge, to say it was clean. So the players will move on.
Yeah.
Conrad burned from about 2 feet short of the back line there. So we were talking about how he burns farther back than anyone. He's in aggressive mode right now.
And when things get down, he is the type of player who feels the pressure to turn it on.
He's ready to take over a game whenever it's needed.
Yeah, he feels very responsible for the outcome, regardless of how hard his partner is trying.
It's a really interesting thing because that happens at any level too. So if you take a player off the street, so ultimate player playing his first DDC game, Conrad will take that player under his wing, give him a great experience, and probably give him his first win ever.
Right.
I have a question. Do you want to help with freestyle judging?
You need a judge.
Because you know what happens is that most of the qualified judges are in this competition. You move down and then the overall players who are as qualified as they do. So I think you're qualified.
Well, the fourth place team scratches, and Tom and I move. But yeah,
You're not in the final.
no, we were fifth up.
So can I put you down as like a judge or
Sure.
master?
Right, so Team Yellow
I'll do it. I mean, I'll
is
ask
playing on
my
Daz.
service.
Rick tried to tip, and the tip hit the ground.
We're at 10-1 now with the red team in command, really. They're Dez. Even though it is the red team's Dez. Unfortunate tangle there. It wasn't really even a tangle. It was just proximity of throws coming in, and Conrad maybe just misjudged.
Yeah, it looked like Conrad got a little bit behind on his positioning. He was backpedaling, and it wasn't quite sure what the correct call was when he signaled go, which is the standard bail me out bail me out call. It had sailed over Dave's head.
In addition to being like one of the best player actually in the world for a very long time, he is a very big organizer and catalyst of other people's growth in this sport. He loves it so much as a player that he does a lot of things outside of the court to keep it going.
We're at 310, and the Dez is with Team Yellow, so expect them to be under attack.
If they're left short, you may see them try to avoid an attack. Looks like they're rallying.
There wasn't enough time on that lead from Conrad to really do any attacks. So Rick dropped the tip. What you might have seen Conrad do there is step out of the court, and so you don't have to stay in the court as you play play an incoming shot. But do you have to stay in the court as you throw?
As you throw, you can't be straddling the line. You have to have a foot in the court at the time of the release of the disc.
So you may see in this match someone like Sam, if he's playing the front line, dive forward out of the court.
And his last contact in the court, it's a legal contact. If he catches the disc and throws before hitting the ground, all legal. Nice escape here. Two nice escapes.
Team Yellow with the Dez. They've got to throw first. Oh, I was wrong. Team Red with the Dez.
That was kind of a steep scuba lead shot from Rick Lebeau, and Conrad just didn't get his hands under it flat enough.
Yeah, I think if he had his choice, he would have tipped it a little bit higher, and it looked like it was sort of at chest level, and normally his tips are forehead level or higher.
Exactly. Yeah, Conrad has a tipping style that's akin to sort of a volleyball player playing something above the net often, and he can jump and tip pretty high, and that gives him a really good range of timing, so his front player can be really comfortable.
Little conversation going on here. It sounds like they're warning Sam about traveling. Sounds like they're seeing Sam take some steps before he throws. So rather than calling it on him, again, spirit of the game coming in, just friendly warning.
Yeah, and sometimes that's a little bit of a dual head game because it's a nice thing, but it also may pull him off of some successful throwing.
Conrad attacking from back of the court. So
It's very close, but called as a clean play.
And there's an example of making a 2 call, it going against you, and you lose the rhythm of the point. So Conrad lost the tracking on the incoming disc, and it hit the ground.
Exactly. And unfortunately, you lose the point.
Ready, 2, 1, throw.
Lebeau with a really nice, high, deep left backhand. And he's now left front, and you can smell an attack.
It's one of the first backhand burns he's missed today.
Yeah, it's had maybe one other. But yeah, leaving a really accurately high-powered throwing player in the front is almost always going to bring aggression.
Players trying to keep things deep again. And Rick tried to get clear of Sam, but lost the tracking on the disc. So 1 point for Team Red.
Yeah, and rather than trying to run in front of his partner, he chose to run around him so that Sam still had the ability to throw. But he probably should have just... Okay, just an unforced error there.
We saw more of those in games 1 and 2. That's maybe one of the first unforced errors we've seen from Red in game 3.
Yeah, I would say, with that as an exception, their stat sheet has looked pretty good for this game.
They've cleaned it up nicely. So Conrad's attacking from the back of the court again. And Dave's throw went out wide.
Conrad, score. We're now at 7-13. The red team winning. The yellow team at Des right now.
They're kind of clawing their way back from down 110. So who knows what might happen in the next few points.
7-13. We're very close to a game 3 being won by Red, but this is a kind of game where you never say never. Little humor. Little humor by Rick Lebeau, contesting a very obvious double to finish this game.
And that's the attack that was not working for them at all in the first and second game. Those two sort of angled backhand leads as opposed to the burns. And in this critical moment, it worked.
Yeah, and I think one of the successes of that is just the proximity of those shots. They were right there in that corner of the court, and as you know too, it's really hard being as comfortable as you are playing with another person. To have two discs and two bodies trying to share that space and get out of the way.
Not only is it difficult to play the discs, but you can't. It's odd, but you can't see all the action when things are so close. You can't track it as well as when you're maybe 3 to 5 feet back.
Right, and and you have to be willing to sort of maybe sometimes collide with your partner, but still stay focused on your disc. And maybe tip, if you're the player who has to tip out of it, you have to maybe reach over your partner's shoulder, get that tip. But ultimately, you don't want to injure each other. And sometimes you just can't avoid it. And maybe the communication doesn't get through either.
We're starting game 3 here. Conrad with the dump. Didn't quite get over Rick's head.
We're actually in game 4. Wow.
So the burn goes wide. We're 1-0 in game 4.
Just to be clear, you were in the court when you threw that, right? Yeah, it was very Conrad. Okay, yeah.
I do have a clean napkin, not the one I just used.
Stripping has begun.
1-0. Ready, 2, 1.
1-0. yellow team.
That serve might have gone out.
Conrad attacking from close front, but it's a dump-like attack. Conrad standing in the front of their court. He could have attacked, but he's making the yellow team rally. Conrad's still close enough that he will take his shot. He moves Sam Kaye, who makes a really nice catch and return, but Lebeau had already dropped his by then.
That was very close to being a double, and smart play by Rick to just let his disc drop.
Ready, 2, 1. The cat was just past that and counted for it. Oh my God, they're both here.
At this point in the match, both teams really seem to have settled in to the pace of play. Neither team seems really tense at the moment.
Looks like Conrad thought that was going to be short, and he also saw that Dave was in his way, so he made a safe call there. Good escapes by Team Yellow in that point. Also seems like Conrad is edging toward the offside burn rather than the strong side burn, so I wonder whether that's intentional and he's setting Yellow up for later, or whether it's just the rhythm of the game.
Yeah, it could be just that that's the throw that he's feeling at the time. He's obviously has the power to go to the strong side as he did there.
It's almost like he heard us talking.
Great escapes, guys. Really.
So it's now a tie game, 2-2, with red calling the des. Conrad attacking. Really nice front play by Dave to get out of that attack. Dave's quick catch and return were wonderful, except that his high overhand wrist flip was angled enough to drift out of the court.
Yeah, I think he wanted to give Conrad a little bit more time and a few extra options on the burn, and just lifted off the side of the court.
And you have to consider that Dave is making all of those judgments in a split second, knowing that he's got to make the play, he's got to listen for what's going on in his court, outside of his own play, and then he's trying to set up the next attack.
Something to watch for here. His catches of the serves to gain court position. So he's trying to leap forward, be a little bit farther in, toward the front of the court when he receives the serve. We might even see a different variation of that where he'll actually tip the serve to get to the front line.
Yeah, players can advance themselves in the court by tipping a serve or any other throw that's in play to gain position. That kind of forward advancement is not totally legal in all forms of ultimate played, but it is here. Two nice attacks and escapes on both sides. Conrad makes a really nice grab to save a 2-point loss.
That was an amazing effort. It looked like it was flying right over his head, and he just stabbed it.
That's that jumping ability we were talking about earlier.
And willingness to fall. Not all of us have that.
Yeah, Conrad has reputation for suffering through some pretty tough injuries in final matches. Back. Yellow is out of that.
It was a good, well-timed attack where reasonable perception by Sam that he didn't have much time to throw, and just threw a little higher than he wanted. Came up short.
Yeah, and front players, when they're catching and throwing under really quick circumstances, don't always have the time to factor in where the wind is going. That's a break there. Unfortunate for red team. Conrad made a tip that got away from him a little bit just as the disc that Dave was receiving slid out. So that will be a break at 4-4.
Still 4 up your call. 4 off. Ready. 2, 1, stop.
4-4, red is the Des, which means they are going to be attacked. Dave and Conrad will try to keep Team Yellow as deep as possible for as long as possible.
Tipping.
Two excellent escapes, leaving Rick at the front line.
Come. Slow.
Soft attack.
Come on here. Angle. Go. Now, release. No angle. Okay.
So Conrad seems to misjudged that lead and thought it might have been going either wide or short, and then sort of the safety call was angle, and he realized immediately that it was pretty flat and not really angle, so he called that off. Again, spirit of the game.
Yeah. So now we're at 5-4. Yellow team is up. They are Des. So they will rally until red maybe sees an opportunity for attack, which is right now.
Go, go, go.
Nice ramp tip by the front, Sam Kaye. But they have a pretty mistimed attack.
Hold, hold, hold.
And received a really well-timed attack by the red team.
Like, not much any team could do with that attack. Low, hard burn right as the lead was coming down on Rick.
Yeah, it takes away the options for the back player, whether they were thinking they would tip or milk it to the ground to catch, especially when it's dropping fast. There's just not much time either way. That is not going to result in a double.
So that rally started with another one of those double backhand attacks, and still doesn't seem to be working, but I wonder whether they are using it as like the first attack of a multi-attack sequence.
Yeah, it could be to see what situations they get in to put the yellow team under some duress. And that's just an unfortunate, unforced error there to throw out the left side. So now we're at 6-5 with the yellow team up by 1, calling the Des.
1, throw.
Rick Lebeau serves a hard, low backhand, but it just clips the line, bringing us to 6-6.
What you saw there was Conrad getting down really, really low, hands near the line, just in case it sailed over. Still very, very difficult throws to catch, but there are things you can do to raise the probability.
Tipping. Easy.
Easy out by red.
Go, go, go.
Oh. Unfortunate miscommunication by the yellow team, resulting in 2 drops. So that's 2 for the red team, and that gets us to about, 8-6 now.
Yeah, and Team Yellow seems to be a little bit rattled by that point. They're talking it through. Got to get back to focusing on the next point.
Yeah, and even though it's not a wide gap, it's that double is a demoralizing feeling. It's like being passed in a race. So, yellow team having a few errors, cascade of a few errors here. Sam Kaye serves out. It's one of the most critical unforced errors you never want to make.
Yeah, and another communication not error, but conflict in a way. So Sam called the dump. He was going to catch the dump and throw his own throw. And Rick knew he could catch that. So there's a little bit of strategy discussion going on about, okay, who's going to call the other off? And let's hope that this isn't going to lower their level of play, any sort of miscommunication or conflict between them.
Team. They can probably shake this off. Might be time, if I were on the court, I might call a timeout.
That would be a good idea. There's daylight opening up between red and yellow, and they need to come back. Beautiful, beautiful offside burn that was just out of Rick's reach.
Yeah. And Conrad is a master of that kind of placement, using just enough power. It's now 12-6. The red team is up. And it is their Des, so they will expect some attacks. And there, Rick Lebeau made a burn attack. Lebeau throws a high scuba dump. Dave tipping out pretty easily and now returning a soft. Dave's two finger was just short of the court, and Rick Lebeau was able to make his catch.
Pretty amazing escape to set that up. Both players in the back of the court. A late go call. And Conrad was able to send the upside down lead, the UD lead, short in the court to cause that proximity disaster for Team Yellow.
Yeah. And Dave really just needed to be, he could have even thrown over top of that play. That's another kind of mix-up you'll see good teams do. But he was just trying to aim for the close placement, putting them both near each other. We'll see if Dave is going to take this throw. He throws a fake. And see that Conrad's going to make a soft attack. And that was a proximity double.
All right, so here's that double backhand attack coming into play again. And what we see here is that the low backhands can be tricky to tip. And so when Rick tipped it, it got away from him. And then sort of by reaction in a way, Sam threw his off and it went wide. So another 2 points lost. Momentum clearly toward red. Looks like we're going to have a fifth game.
Fifth game indeed, yeah. And it's back and to go on a many point to 0 run, but it's given them a lot of confidence, and it's given the yellow team a lot more to think about. Conrad throws a pretty fast proximity to Rick Lebeau holding a disc.
Team Yellow had 3 chances to catch that one.
Right.
And unfortunately, none of them worked out. So game 4 to Team Red. We are tied up.
Yeah. Both teams, maybe, although Yellow has dropped 2 games in a row, they stormed on at the beginning of the match. Maybe they'll have a chance to clear their heads now, and they know what they're looking at. I don't think there's any more guesswork as to what Red is bringing.
Yeah, I mean, both teams are playing at such an incredibly high level. It's easy to Team Yellow definitely and making some small errors, but really Team Red is playing super solid. They've cleaned up errors, and the additional aggression that they're getting from Conrad playing back and Dave covering is really paying off.
necessarily a game to 15, but it may end up being that.
Early unforced error from Rick on a rally shot that might have been angle.
But he would have needed to call that angle before letting it hit the ground.
So there's a risk there.
Yeah. But oftentimes players will take shots that they believe to be angle because they feel it's very catchable anyway, and it allows them to make a play.
Come on, Rick.
Rick's backhand goes quite wide and quite short.
Yeah.
So he's going to try to regroup for the third point of the fifth game.
Yeah, 2 errors like that. No player ever wants to start that way. But it is recoverable. They just need to calm down. Even it would be a really good time to take a timeout and reset.
Break here.
I know when I'm in the game and I do those things, I feel responsible.
Interesting moment for Sam to step up as leader of the team until Rick is back and feeling confident again.
Yeah, and he's certainly capable of that.
Out here, just catch. Just catch. Turn.
Easy escape from red, although Dave threw his wide, so yellow's on the board.
Yeah. And again, if they get another couple of points, just playing conservative as they would need to and keeping things in. No unforced errors like that drop or that throw out.
Yeah, and even those early errors did not open up a huge gap. It was 2 points.
Yeah.
That's easily overcomable, even in one rally.
Yeah. Sometimes it can be demoralizing if the team doesn't just sort of take a deep breath and reset.
1-2, yellow Des. Conrad serve, sailing out wide, uncharacteristic error.
It could be a little bit of switching wind, and sometimes when players grip up and the Des call is going into its count, you visualize the throw, and then the wind changes, and it's no longer true.
We've had some gently shifting winds here at Santa Cruz too, so that might be a signal that the wind is rotating around. Looks like Rick might be back with that burn. Beautiful, beautiful backhand burn winner.
Yeah, and point-by-point plays like that can build confidence and really spring a team forward.
So I think they're crossing ahead now, actually, 3-2.
Yeah, so it's been a while since they had a lead in a couple of games.
3-2. Ready. 2, 1, throw.
Yeah. And so Arthur's just noting that the wind really is shifting some.
Wow, what a shot. Stay. Oh.
Sam made an almost really clean, nice, easy winner, except that it had just enough bite on it to get the line, to get the side line.
So the wind seems to be shifting so that one team is throwing downwind and the other team is throwing upwind. So what we might see is the team on the downwind side amping up their aggression, like we talked about earlier in game 1, in order to win some cheap points.
Yeah. When you're on that downwind side, it really, even though it's a 5-point set in each court, if you can get 2 points on the downwind side, sometimes that is really, if you're playing well and you get into the upwind court.
So when you're throwing upwind, a lot of things can go wrong with your throws.
Yeah.
The wind is fighting it, the wind is blowing it left to right, the wind is slowing it down, making it go shorter than you want, so much more difficult to keep the opposing team deep.
Right. And you might factor in that the wind requires a steeper angle of throw upwind, but then the grass here is so sticky, and that steeper angle could then become a liability on the other side of the court. Rick with a really high, beautiful scuba shot. Dave tips out. Great escape. And that was just a well-timed play. Perfect shot by Sam Kaye.
That low lead shot forced Conrad into a desperation tip at his knees, and the disc was just flopping over after it. He was lucky to catch it.
And it might have been a touch late of a call by Conrad because of that, and making it hard for Dave to field his shot.
When the attack's coming in on both sides of the court, it can make calls difficult because you can't see the other player can't hear you.
That was a situation where, because of the positioning in the red team's court, Rick Lebeau saw a possible opportunity to put an aggressive upwind two-finger on Dave Hesselberth, making it really difficult for him to play out.
Red team calling the score 5-4 in this fifth game.
Travel 2. No, I drop. Okay. Just in case.
So Sam couldn't get rid of his throw without walking, and he realized that he had violated the rules and needed to drop the disc and sacrifice that 1 point. Team Red checking in on whether there might have been a double, and it looks like it got resolved that there's just 1 point scored.
Yeah, and sometimes as a player, you kind of forget the rules because that desperation of trying to avoid a double makes you do something like a travel violation. It seems logical at the moment until you remember.
What each of the teams is trying to do is make suboptimal plays.
Out here, just catch. Yep. Good here.
Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful short throw into the corner by Conrad. So on that last point, Team Red threw both discs to the same spot, forcing Team Yellow to either throw very early or sacrifice that 1 or 2 points. So each of the teams is trying to just pick away at making the other team do hard things instead of easy things.
Yeah, and what I would call sort of shaping the attack a little bit more than just trying to get two discs into the other court at the same time. It's windy here. These guys trying to be kind of patient and really deliberate with that initiation shot, and it just tangled Sam up a little bit.
Looked like it originally was going to drop in front of Rick, and then it blew up behind Rick and got over Sam's head. It's possible that it could have even flown long if Sam had not attempted that catch, but he really had to.
Yeah.
Ready. 2, 1, throw.
And we're at 8-4 for Team Red, continuing their comeback.
Tip. One. Oh. No, that's one. Hit you in the hands. That's not points. Right. No, it's not. I don't think it was high speed either.
So the teams here are now discussing play was what we would call endangerment. And the endangerment rule is that if a player is playing a disc above his head and another disc hits him above his knees, then he can call endangerment and then it would be a play. But Conrad Damon was stating that he did not believe that it was a high-speed shot and therefore not an endangerment.
It's an interesting kind of joke between the two of the red team. So Dave called endangerment, and Dave was super surprised when Conrad said, nah, not endangerment. Now the conversation is what the definition of endangerment is, and you've got two members of the DDC Rules Committee trying to figure out what's actually in the rules book. So there were some changes this year. We made it simpler. And so Rick is under the impression that hands are excluded from endangerment. And it could be that that's not actually in the rule book, not documented, but just tradition.
But technically, I would say, Arthur, but hands really can never be below the knees. Unless you're a different species of primate.
So if it hits my hand, it's automatically endangerment because
One would think.
I know my hands don't go below my knees.
I think the distinction he's really trying to make is that Conrad's hands perhaps were in catching position or playing position,
Yes.
and not just hanging there limply and then being hit.
Yeah, and I think the intention of endangering can cause bruises. Conrad to begin with, so that's fine.
So since Conrad called it a non-call, it should be a non-call. Why are they having such a big discussion about it?
You got three philosophers. They want to resolve it.
I didn't think there was anything to resolve. That's what I'm getting at.
I think they're resolving the big picture issue for next time, and you're right. Conrad kind of called off the call, but we'll hear in a few moments among.
Going back to my previous comment, this is what it's like to play a sport that's experiencing evolution every year.
Meanwhile, Sam's just relaxing. He's making sure he's got as much energy as possible for the remaining points of Game 5.
And Dave Hesselberth is off on the sideline having a nice little conversation with some spectators and friends.
I think he finished the other half of his hamburger.
Dave Hesselberth might have finished the hamburger that he bought directly before the match began.
Sam is more than willing to make calls and assert his viewpoint, but he's a really good-natured guy and also more than willing to kind of joke about it and make jokes at his own expense as well. So he's probably just hanging back and listening for how he might give those guys a hard time later.
Yeah. But when it is an actual infraction or something to be decided, he is also a very intense litigator of his viewpoint.
Oh, the founder of the sport.
So now you might not see this in every competitive sport that you get to watch on TV or online, where the actual founder of the sport steps into a rules discussion. Okay, so we're back to match play here after a slight intermission. One would expect that after that, both of these teams are kind of relaxed and just playing the game.
Little wind shift right before Dave threw that. There was a chance it was going to fly out. So Conrad picked up on it, and he's thrown out a different angle off his sidearm. 2 points for Team Yellow. That's critical.
Yeah. That will definitely help them relax some.
So, do you think that might have been a play by Rick to squash the momentum the other team had playing, or was it a sincere discussion over the rules?
It seemed to me to be a pretty organic but earnest discussion about the rules. Good escapes here. Really good escapes. We're back and forth twice now.
A lift was called on that tip. I didn't hear how Blair resolved it. Beautiful, beautiful point from both teams. We might have exceeded that triple tip point from earlier with that. Was that maybe 5 escapes from each team? 5 escapes total?
Yeah, 5, maybe going on to 6 escapes almost, and Sam Kaye sort of bringing it to a halt there, making a really desperate, valiant grab, and almost impossible throw out.
I'm getting a contact time.
Yeah.
Team switching sides. They do that after every 5 points. Now Team Yellow will get a different look at the wind. Looks like Team Red will be throwing downwind from here.
Ready, 2, 1, go.
there was a wind change there. You could see that in both of the throws that the teams were receiving. Rick Lebeau actually called that as if he were going to play the catch, and realized as it was coming down that it was blowing out. Conrad took a throw that was also sort of blowing toward the sideline, but chose to catch.
7-9, yellow with the Des. Dropped burn from Sam. Unusual with that speed of burn.
Yeah, the deciding factor there was the fact that Dave Hesselberth noticed the position of Sam. He threw an offside shot, which forced Sam to move to his right and to make what looked like it was going to be just an easy off. But because he was moving and doing a couple different things at once, not as easy to catch as it might seem.
Sometimes those softer burns, ironically, can be harder to play because there's not that smack against your hand to give you the smack back on the throw.
Exactly, and you get just a little more time to think about the throw you're going to return, and so you're almost throwing before you're catching. Dave Hesselberth was called by Conrad to go, meaning to play his disc first. It had a little bit of heat on it from the scuba burn that Rick Lebeau threw, and it just tipper in almost any situation.
Most of their tips of 3 have been under control, so I would call that a forced error given the force of Rick's scuba.
So Dave Hesselberth throws up a little bit of a 2-finger fake, seeing if they can get in some better position for an attack. Both in the front corner now, the yellow team, that is. Lebeau with a really smoking 2-finger shot, low and not an easy play for Dave, and of course he dropped.
Conrad with position there, plenty of time to react to Dave's information to catch his. Teams feeling each other out, very deep throws.
Sometimes the tension in those rally points there, those rally exchanges where one team is just waiting for the right opportunity to attack and the other is just trying to make that decision harder by keeping the other team deeper. And sometimes the tension as the person who's catching and throwing builds and builds and builds by every throw.
Yeah, and these teams are not playing in that situation. They're basically playing a 6 meter by 13 meter square or smaller because they want to keep the other team so deep that they can't attack.
Right. Of the court is our thing. Look, it's going to come as a burn.
Angle, go. Angle. First I want to call the lift.
So a number of calls happening in this last exchange. The yellow team is calling
A flurry of calls against the red team. A lift tip. So tips have to be kind of crisp. You can't actually kind of have extended contact before the disc goes up and out of your hands. And so they were called for the lift. They also called angle, so they thought that Dave's throw was a bit too steep.
10-11, a serve called by the yellow team. They have 10. 1 point down under Des. They're about to face an attack. Conrad fakes. Rick Lebeau continuing to shoot for the back of the right. Very slow attack. Lebeau. Sam Kaye's return went out.
That's a tough throw, that quick overhand wrist flip Not many people throw that when playing catch. You'll see freestylers throw it, but it's not one that people generally practice a lot. And Sam is one of the best at catching a burn and throwing an accurate wrist flip off. That one just an inch out.
Yeah, and the reason that these players choose particular throws is because they work well with the direction that the wind is throwing, and also it allows them to throw in the grip that they catch. Sam with a real squeaker over the front line. Really good, strong power. And just very hard to play, even if you're Dave Hesselberth.
Conrad still, 11-12. Ready, 2, 1, throw.
Game to 15, 11-12.
Put him deep. Come on.
Conrad at the front line.
Come, tip. Off.
Floater.
Switch, yeah. I got him.
And Sam, just as good as his last burn was, this one went just as wide.
Yeah. He was a little amped up.
A little bit of battle going on as well between he and Conrad. Can I beat the man?
Right. Yeah, the pressure from the other players is a palpable thing.
I'm here. Watch your burn.
Another factor is that when you're that close to a really good throwing player, you're going to have to take it back.
2, no.
So, good attack by yellow. They called 2, but it was 2 different sounds, 2 different points of contact in the red court.
That was a very high lead. Tough to play.
Yeah.
Was that a scooper lead that came in, or 2-finger?
I didn't see the throw going off.
Coming down pretty quickly. So we're at a critical point in the match. 13-12. Game to 15. 5th game of 5. No cap on the score if these teams keep tying it up.
Right.
Slow 13, ready, 2, 1, throw.
12-13. A little bit of an advantage for Team Red, playing the downwind, throwing downwind, and also Team Yellow being Des.
Yep. It could be over a bunch of points.
Tip yours. Dip. Hold. That's left.
That was a really hard,
Look called on your head.
hard attack.
Because if Sam had lifted it, it might have cost the team 2 points in the match.
Nobody wants to see, probably even Conrad Damon and Dave Hesselberth this match. And
So we have match point. 14-12.
14-12, here we are.
What a comeback. Down from 0-2 to match point.
Yeah, we can chalk it up
Ready, 2, 1, go.
to a change in defensive positions for one.
That seemed to be the biggest key.
Coming high. Off. Come slow. Chip. Off. Coming high. Off. Hold. You got it. I got it.
Probably some attack going to come back now. Oh, well, it didn't.
Coming. Tip. Hold. Oh, he's got it.
Sam sneaking in a shot that Dave assessed to be blowing out toward the sideline.
I think Dave sensed that he had won the match, and it just stayed very, very well in.
Really good, confident throw by Sam Kaye, making this even tighter. So we might have been premature to say that it was possibly wrapping up.
That last point was kind of interesting because both teams were kind of positioning for the final attack.
Come slow.
So Conrad with the slow high attack.
Hold. catch it, Dave.
And that will be game.
Huge comeback for Damon and Hesselberth, down 0-2, winning the final 3 games. Pretty amazing performance by both teams. A very high level of play.
Yeah, 15-13, the final score of the final game. Everybody here watching DDC got a full match to watch.
Amazing team with 4 players.
U.S. Open champions of 2016, Conrad Damon and Dave Hesselberth. Runners-up, Rick Lebeau and Sam Kaye.
That was
So it is a quarter after 2.
Conrad's
Accuracy
celebrating
start
with
at
his
quarter
son.
Till 3. So in 1/2 hour, accuracy final. Will
Conrad's top fan
Juniors
gets out to the
and
field to
ladies
see
and
him,
men.
Nick,
And his wife, Missy.
and his wife, Missy. And we're not about 40 or 50 miles from Conrad's home.
Exactly, just over the hill.
And Sam Kaye
Again,
and Rick
a big
Lebeau were
round of
playing
applause
together
our
for their
new
first time.
U.S. Open overall champions for DDC.
And Sam again.
Conrad Damon and Dave Hesselberth.
This is a huge tournament for him, huge up-and-comer.
Thanks again for a great show, you guys.
I think he doesn't get to be called an up-and-comer anymore with a match like this.
Right.
With the consistent high-level finals performances that he's putting in.
Well, that concludes our commentary on the 2016 U.S. Open Flying Disc Men's DDC Championship.
Practice a lot, and Sam is one of the best at catching a burn and throwing an accurate wrist flip off. That one just an inch out.
Yeah, and the reason that these players choose particular throws is because they work well with the direction that the wind is throwing, and also it allows them to throw in the grip that they catch. Sam with a real squeaker over the front line. Really good, strong power. And just very hard to play, even if you're Dave Hesselberth.
Conrad still 11-12. Ready, 2, 1, throw.
Game to 15, 11-12. Conrad at the front line.
Come, tip.
Floater.
Switch, yeah. I got him.
And Sam, just as good as his last burn was, this one went just as wide.
Yeah. He was a little amped up.
A little bit of battle going on as well between he and Conrad. Can I beat the man?
Right. Yeah, the pressure from the other players is a palpable thing. Another factor is that when you're that close to a really good throwing player, you're going to have to take it back. So, good attack by Yellow. They called 2, but it was 2 different sounds, 2 different points of contact in the red court.
That was a very high lead. Tough to play.
Yeah.
Was that a scooper lead that came in, or 2-finger?
I didn't see the throw going off.
Yeah. Coming down pretty quickly. So we're at a critical point in the match. 13-12. Game to 15. 5th game of 5. No cap on the score if these teams keep tying it up.
Right.
12-13, ready, 2, 1, throw.
12-13. A little bit of an advantage for Team Red, playing the downwind, throwing downwind, and also Team Yellow being Des.
Yep. It could be over a bunch of points.
Tip yours. Tip. Hold. Left.
That was a really hard,
Look called on your pet.
hard attack.
Because if Sam had lifted it, it might have cost the team 2 points in the match.
Nobody wants to see, probably even Conrad Damon and Dave Hesselberth this match. And
So we have match point. 14-12.
14-12, here we are.
What a comeback. down from 0-2 to match point.
Yeah, we can chalk it up
Ready, 2, 1, go.
to a change in defensive positions for one.
That seems to be the biggest key.
Coming high. Come slow. Chip. Off. Coming high. Off. Hold. You got it. I got it.
Probably some attack going to come back now. Oh, well, it didn't.
Coming. Tip. Hold. Oh, he's got it.
Sam sneaking in a shot that Dave assessed to be blowing out toward the sideline.
I think Dave sensed that he had won the match, and it just stayed very, very well in.
Really good, confident throw by Sam Kaye, making this even tighter. So we might have been premature to say that it was possibly wrapping up.
That last point was kind of interesting because both teams were kind of positioning for the final attack.
Come slow.
So Conrad with the slow high attack.
Hold. Oh, shoot. Go catch it, Dave.
And that will be game.
Huge comeback for Damon and Hesselberth, down 0-2, winning the final 3 games. Pretty amazing performance by both teams, a very high level of play.
Yeah, 15-13, the final score of the final game.
DDC gets
Everybody here watching
one great
DDC
honor. See such
got a
great
full
match
match to
between
watch.
two amazing teams with 4 players.
U.S. Open champions of 2016, Conrad Damon and Dave Hesselberth. Runners-up, Rick Lebeau and Sam Kaye.
That was
So it is a quarter after 2.
Conrad's
Accuracy
Conrad's
start
celebrating
at
with
a
his
quarter
son.
Till 3. So in 1/2 hour, accuracy final. will
Conrad's top fan
Juniors
gets out to
and
the field to
ladies
see
and
him,
men.
Nick,
And his wife, Missy.
and his wife, Missy. And we're not about 40 or 50 miles from Conrad's home.
Exactly, just over the hill.
And Sam Kaye
Again,
and Rick
a big
Lebeau were
round of
playing
applause
together
our
for their
new
first time.
U.S. Open overall champions for DDC.
And Sam again.
Conrad Damon and Dave Hesselberth.
This is a huge tournament for him, huge up-and-comer.
Thanks again for a great show, you guys.
I think he doesn't get to
Jim
be called an
Palmieri,
up-and-comer
Jim
anymore
Palmieri.
with a match like this,
Right.
with the consistent high-level finals performances that he's putting in.
Well, that concludes our commentary on the 2016 U.S. Open Flying Disc Men's DDC Championship.
We went back and forth several times.
Do you want to handle this?
Okay.
Oh, yeah, okay. Little winners interview.
Yeah.
I'll hold the box.
We're here with the 2016 U.S. Open Flying Disc Championships DDC champions, Conrad Damon and Dave Hesselberth. What do you think the key was to that match?
I think really the switch. In the start of the 3rd game, we switched positions. Conrad was playing a much solider back once he got in that position, and we both got more aggressive with the attacks, especially Conrad, really.
What do you think that Sam and Rick did well in the first 2 games to win those games against you?
They threw in well. They kept us off base. We were playing a little bit against our normal configuration with me in the front, and they were throwing very good leads that were tough to tip. And then we decided we need to switch back to our traditional configuration.
Hey, I've got with me Jim Palmieri.
Seemed like both teams had a little bit of accuracy problems in the first couple games, and then both teams cleaned it up in the last 3. Did you see the same thing?
Absolutely.
Since what year did you start doing this?
The wind conditions were extremely
What year did you
variable.
start
We
doing
had
this,
at
Jim?
least
started
3
playing
different
Frisbee in
directions.
1970.
And so there were definitely some throws
Mother's
which
Day.
came
You were
out
the
clean, and then
23rd
you just
member of
watched
the
them
PGA,
sail
right?
out. So
Yes.
it was
23.
fairly demanding
In those early
conditions
days
because of the
what were those early
variability.
days of organized the sport?
Congratulations on your big win.
Thank
Big
you.
comeback.
All right, thanks.